A woman claims that Houston Texans football player Arian Foster is the father of her baby. Brittany Norwood says she is under great stress because Foster and his brother have put pressure on her to not have the child.
Referring to it as, you know, I'm not ready for this, I'll lose my kids if my wife finds out, like she's gonna take my children.
You know, it's hard going to ultrasounds and not having, you know, somebody there with you. And I want him to love my son the way I do.
Well, obviously, this situation happens every day among average people. Joining us with more on how the law in Texas works when it comes to child support and emotional distress, welcome attorney Brian Abercrombie with Cordell & Cordell. That law firm specializes in representing men and family issues, and family law attorney Cynthia Diggs with Holmes, Diggs & Eames. Good morning. Thank you. Okay, so, you know, there are a lot of opinions and emotions flying in this situation right here. And although we're looking at this in the headlines because it's a celebrity, you all deal with this every day, whether it's celebrities or average people. I want to start with you in terms of your law firm specializes in helping men because you feel like over the years, men sometimes have gotten much more of a bum rap than probably deserved.
Yes, I think there's a lot of instances where men kind of come in a little bit at a little bit, whether it's child custody or child support or whatever the case may be. There are a lot of instances where men kind of get a lesser role, lesser extent. Yeah. In a child custody or a child custody proceeding.
And that's kind of like the pendulum swinging the other way, because we certainly know, Cynthia, for many, many years, women, when it came to child support, sometimes men would leave and say, too bad, so sad, you had it, you keep it, I'm gone. But now laws have changed.
The laws have changed, and the state of Texas and our judges are very keen on making sure that children are supported. And at the bottom of this, no matter who you side with, we have to remember there's an innocent child involved. And if this is Arian Foster's child, the court is going to order Arian Foster to support him. And I think Arian Foster accepts that. He has pled in his pleadings to be a joint conservator of the child.
Right, right. I think this is a great time, too, to kind of educate people about what child support means, because I can't tell you how many people have said to me, or we've been reading the comments on all these websites, she's going to get paid, she's going to be a millionaire, because, you know, Arian reportedly signed a deal for $43.5 million with the Texans. So they're saying she's getting half of that. Child support and a divorce and alimony and all that stuff are completely different things.
A little bit different than that.
Yeah. So explain what child support really is for, and that you're not getting rich off of that, even if the person you're dealing with is rich.
Child support in Texas, and Cynthia's right, it's absolutely for support of the child, and there is a presumptive cap on child support. So regardless of, you know, how much money one person makes, they're going to look after the needs of the child. And in Texas, there's a presumptive cap, and it's for one child, it's around $1,700 a month.
Yeah. So no matter how rich that other person or the parent may be who's paying the child support, there's a cap.
That's right. The only time there's an exception to that is when you can prove that the child has needs beyond the $1,700 or beyond whatever the cap is in this case. And with a child that is not yet born, that's a little bit speculative. And even with a newborn, to imagine that the child's expenses would be more than $1,700 a month, that's a bit of a stretch, unless the child has special needs.
Right. Speaking of needs, Brittany has said that she had to go on Medicaid because she doesn't have the money to pay for what she needs during this pregnancy. How does the law work there? Is that supposed father required to help pay for those medical needs?
She can petition the court and ask for medical expenses for even the prenatal stuff once the paternity has been adjudicated and that sort of thing.
And speaking of the paternity, here's the thing that's kind of interesting. She says she has DNA evidence, and typically DNA evidence may be taken when a woman's pregnant if there's a suspicion that perhaps there's a chromosome issue or a birth defect. But do we usually do that in utero to figure out the paternity of a parent?
No, in order to do this, in order to do a paternity test, you need to test the mother, you need to test the father, the alleged father, and you need to test the baby. And courts are very reluctant to order that until the baby is born.
Yeah.
So that seems unlikely. It's possible, but highly unlikely.
All right. The other, The other thing that she is suing for is emotional distress. Now, this is what sets a lot of people on fire. So the emotional distress claim, what would need to be proven for that to have any weight?
Well, you have to prove that the conduct on the part of Arian Foster is extreme and outrageous. It has to be to a level that is utterly intolerable in civilized society. That's from the case law. And it's difficult to imagine that asking your mistress to have an abortion is so very extreme, especially since we know that the terms that it was couched in were polite. There was not cussing. There were not threats.
Yeah.
It was consider his children and things of that nature.
And the quotes that she had. Yeah. Okay. Now we're taking a look right here. If you were going into a court situation where you had a jury, this is a case where social media cannot be your friend. This is a Halloween costume that she dressed in a couple of years ago as a, can you guess what she's dressed as? A gold digger, right? Okay. So she's dressed as a gold digger. She has all kinds of sexy pictures on there. She sold her pregnancy pictures, her baby bump pictures to TMZ. So it just sets a tone of, did you go into this thinking that you're going to land a big deal? She also has a reality show that she's supposedly trying to get ready for. So all those types of things that we do, can that impact what a court case with the outcome?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a perception, I think, that goes along with a lot of family cases, and obviously what you put out on social media is never, it's not something you can always take down. It's not something that's always deleted. Once it's out there, it's out there. So we always tell people to kind of go into a black hole when they're involved in a child custody proceeding or a divorce proceeding.
Go away, shut up, stop posting. Yeah.
Because that stuff, I mean, and anything that you say can and will be used against you. I mean, that's
yeah,
obvious.
Because I'll post and stuff. I'll post. Here I am at church again. Okay. So we mentioned that with the child support, that's not something she's going to get rich off of. However, and we're not saying that this is going to happen, but in cases like this, when you are the wife, then there is a different level of what you could get out of this deal if you so choose to get divorced. Now, in a divorce in a state like Texas, where we're a no-fault divorce, does it carry weight that the other partner may have cheated?
It does, but only to the extent of a few percentage points off of a 50-50 split. Now, however, if you have a $47 million contract, that could be a substantial difference in the end result. Now, of course, that $47 million contract is a matter of years. I hope we're not going to go too far speculating about.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I'm not saying Mr. Foster. I'm saying in general, this happens every day. You have people who get divorced, and oftentimes in Texas, I have friends who've done it. They've said, "Well, he cheated, so I should get everything." It's like, well, what no fault means is that doesn't necessarily give you that.
You can allege no fault, and you can also allege fault in Texas, and fault may get you a little more, but it's not going to get you everything.
Yeah. There's very rarely is there something that's over a 5 percentage point, 10 percentage point difference. I mean, 10% I think is probably a bit of a stretch. I think you're looking at a couple of percentage points, like Cynthia said.
Yeah. And what about alimony? That's another thing that we kind of misunderstand in Texas. Not quite like states like California.
Texas doesn't really have alimony unless you have nothing else, and unless you're in a situation where it's a very long-term marriage and you have a wife who is not going to be capable of meeting her minimum reasonable needs.
Wife or husband. That's the other thing we forget too, is that most of the time it is the wife, but if it's the other way around,
I think there's definitely a double standard when it comes to husbands and alimony.
Yeah, sometimes the women are the breadwinners, and so that's what happens. Okay, I want to move on to another relationship that got a lot of headlines, and that was the case with the hand surgeon Michael Brown. In the middle of those divorce proceedings that have been going on for quite some time, he passed away, and right now they're having a 3-day auction of a lot of the things that he had that are selling right now. But what I want to know is, they were in the middle of that divorce. What happens? Does she automatically get everything? They're not even ex-wife yet. Technically not ex-wife yet. Or do they start all over? Or what happens with that?
Well, death abates a divorce. That's sort of our black letter law, and therefore it leaves the divorce courts and moves into the probate courts.
Okay.
Yes, and so whatever his will is, or if it's an intestate estate, it would go potentially, that direction. But yes, the wife probably would get a substantial take, if not everything, at that point, if they're not divorced.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that before anybody gets in a relationship or gets married, we should have a little mini law class on marriage and divorce in Texas, because it's interesting how many people go, I had no idea, because we think we are going to be married forever. We hope, but.
And even in second marriages and with blended families and stepchildren, I think premarital agreements and stuff are vitally important when you're going into those things.
Yeah. Cynthia, how do you feel about the prenup?
I think it's a very good idea, and I think it's especially a good idea when you have a second marriage.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound very romantic, but truthfully, a big part of a marriage relationship is an economic relationship. Right. And these are things that people should at least talk about, even if they don't get a marital property agreement.
And of course, by the second marriage, you probably have accumulated some assets, too, that you might want to protect.
And you may have children with expectations.
Yeah,
exactly.
well, I have one with expectations headphones right now. But anyway, all right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And for the latest on this case, stay tuned to KHAU News. We know we had the exclusive interview with Brittany here in town before anyone else. And for more information on Brian and Cynthia, you can log on to greatdayhouston.com and the legal work that they do. Today on Facebook, many of you have clear-cut opinions on who you think is at fault in this situation, but you don't all share the same view. So we want to know how you feel. Is Foster mostly at fault because, after all, he was the one already in a committed relationship with kids? Does she deserve the sympathy because she has to raise the child alone? Remember, she said she's only 20 and now she's going to be a single mother.